I think it's important so that you know your oven.
Yeah. Moral of the story, your oven will give you trust issues, so get an oven thermometer.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? It's Kat and Dev from Two Market Girls. Welcome to another episode of Whatever Wednesday. Today's episode is all about kitchen essentials.
Or at least what we think are kitchen essentials.
In our opinion.
What we find ourselves using most of the time.
Now, is this more for a vegan kitchen or just anybody's kitchen?
I think it's anybody's kitchen, to be honest.
That's
good. Like, I think it's obviously, like, this is what we use the most. We're both vegans, so obviously vegans might have better uses out of it. But I think anybody needs this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should we just, like, dive right in?
Probably, right? Because, like,
it's pretty self-explanatory.
I figure, like, anyone who wants to cooking is such a big part of your life.
Well,
so you better, like, why not have a well-equipped kitchen to do it right? Like, especially if you don't enjoy cooking, I feel like having the right tools might actually allow you to enjoy cooking a little bit more.
It makes it so much easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, number one, like, these aren't really in any particular order, but I do think number one is the most important to have. A good chef's knife.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how important it was until I bought mine. And you don't, like, when you're cutting with something that's actually sharp and well made, it is so much easier to cut things. Mm-hmm. And it's actually so much safer, weirdly enough, because, like, it's so smooth in cutting. And we use that every recipe.
All the time.
Like, I never not use my chef's knife.
Yeah.
So, chef's knives usually run pretty high. Like, a decent chef's knife could cost you like $200, but I found mine, if you go to like warehouse sales, I found mine for only $50, down from like $150. So you can go to like warehouse sales and find some pretty good knives.
That's a good hack.
Yeah,
That's a very good hack.
But if you're not going to a warehouse, expect to spend at least $100, but it's well worth it because it's going to last you a long time. Like your chef's knife, if you take care of it, sharpen it regularly and sharpen it well, like take it somewhere to get sharpened if you don't know how to properly sharpen a knife, it will last you your lifetime. Like, you'll never have to buy a new chef's knife again.
$100?
That's not that expensive, especially when you come to our next item on the list, Devin.
Oh, wow. That's a good point, because our next item is a high-speed blender.
Yeah. We have two different blenders.
Yes.
She has the Ninja, I have the Vitamix. The Ninja is significantly cheaper. Mm-hmm. But I think if you're someone who doesn't necessarily do a lot of cooking or enjoy cooking or have the money to spend on a Vitamix because it can be pretty pricey, I think the Ninja is a great option.
I think so too.
And it's pretty high speed. It does like a lot of the stuff that the Vitamix does. Maybe not as well as it, like your things might not come out as smooth as you want it, but it's still going to come out pretty damn good.
Or it might take longer for it to get smoother. We did a whole review where we compared the Ninja and the Vitamix, and to be honest, it was pretty good, right?
It was pretty good. Like, a lot of people think the Vitamix is a lot better, and I think it is better, but it's not necessarily, like, for the things that we need it for and the things that people every day might need it for, I think the Ninja is pretty good if you don't want to spend $500-$600 on a blender. Mm-hmm. I would never give up my Vitamix. I love my Vitamix, and I think it's a worthy investment because it will last you a long time. Mine came with a 10-year warranty. I'm not sure what the warranties are at now. I think mine came with a 10-year warranty. Could have been less, but it comes with a long warranty. They last a long time if you take care of them. So if you do want to invest in a really good high-speed blender, I would recommend the Vitamix.
Now, we talked about the brands, but why would somebody want a high-speed blender?
As a vegan, especially, cheese sauce.
Yes.
You're going to be blending up a lot of nuts, which are really, really hard. And in order to get them smooth enough and like not kind of grainy, you want a high-speed blender because that's what's going to make a more enjoyable nut butter or cheese sauce or anything that you kind of need to make a creamy cashew dressing or something like that. But aside from that, smoothies are a big part of most people's mornings.
Heck yeah.
And like, if you're adding like greens to your smoothies, those can be really like
kale problems.
It can like kind of taste like you're drinking salad a little bit because like you still feel the chunks of kale in there if you don't have a high-speed blender. So if you make a lot of smoothies, it's really good. I mean, if you just do a lot of stuff yourself, like a lot of people who make flowers, a high-speed blender is really good. But like, I make salad dressings in my high-speed blender.
Yeah, because once you
or sauces.
When you go vegan, it's almost easier to make them yourself sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
So having a good blender to do that just makes it so much better.
You can make a lot of things in a high-speed blender, and it's like, don't just think of like, people make hummus in a blender. You think you need to make hummus in a food processor, but you can actually make it in your Vitamix. So I think that is a very, very important thing, and any kind of new homeowner should look to invest in a good blender.
Yeah. Okay. Next on the list.
Want to talk about it?
Cast iron pan.
An essential.
So when I think of why I love having a cast iron pan in my kitchen, it's for tofu.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. And it's important, especially if you're vegan and you're eating a lot of tofu. Badly cooked tofu can turn you off to tofu so quickly.
Tofu has such a bad rep, and I'm always like, well, you're just not cooking it right.
Exactly. So if you like take the time, invest in some good equipment, and cook it slowly. I know this isn't about cooking tofu, but you can make some really awesome stuff, and cast iron pans are perfect for that.
We've made some really good dips in cast iron pans.
Cast iron pans, like, speaking of like dips, most cast iron pans are great because you can use them on the stove, you can use them in the oven, and you can also use them on the barbecue. Amazing. They're so like multi-purpose. The only default for anyone who doesn't know much about cast iron pans is that they take a long time to heat up. So they take like a good 10-15 minutes sometimes to heat up. So you don't want to add things to a cold cast iron pan because you won't get that even cook that cast iron pans are known for. So make sure they heat up properly before you add anything into it.
Next up is something we use all the time. Not expensive.
Not at all.
And I think it's good to have a couple of them in your kitchen. They're baking sheets.
Cauliflower wings?
I know, first thing, cauliflower wings.
It's also good to have a couple different versions. So like light and dark, because they do different things in the oven and cook things differently, as well as different sizes.
Yes.
So I used to only have like really big ones, but when you're just cooking like a small amount of vegetables, you don't want to dirty up that whole thing. So get a small one.
Yeah.
So it's like a little brownie baking pan.
But definitely a big one for when you're making cookies, because you're not going to make a small batch of cookies.
And cauliflower wings.
Or
I usually have 2 in the oven.
I know, right? The next one goes hand in hand with the baking sheets. It's something called a Silpat, or a silicone baking sheet mat. Mat.
Silpat's the brand.
Yeah.
The brand that I grew up knowing, the brand that I really recommend people buy. It is a little pricier, but it's like the original silicone baking mat, and it lasts so long.
And it cooks better, right? It does improve the cooking process?
I've heard, I think it improves the cooking process. Everything's nonstick. You don't have to use any oil or parchment paper, so you bring down your waste a lot. And I've heard, like, I've never really tried it because I cook with oil, but a lot of people who do oil-free say that it helps to get the crispiness still on the parchment, or on the baking sheets, so maybe. I've never really tested that out, but, because I cook with oil, so... that's a thing.
Yeah, and they're not super expensive.
No, you can get like, Canadian brand President's Choice has some pretty cheap ones for like $10. Easy, they'll last you a long time. I would recommend getting the Silpat. It's a little pricier. I think one like normal baking sheet size is about $30, but I've had my Silpat for like 10 years.
What?
Yeah, it was my mom's first and she gave it to me. It's at least 10 years, probably more than that, and it's perfectly fine. It's now just starting to show signs of like a little bit of wear to it. So I would recommend, and I've had other ones like no-name brands or like cheaper brand ones that have worn out before the Silpat that I've had for the longest time. So I would recommend investing in the Silpat because it's not that pricey, and you don't need a lot of them. 1 or 2 mats and you're fine.
Yeah. Okay. The next one, Catherine this is something she's very passionate about.
Yeah.
So, do you want to just
oven thermometers?
Your love for...
Yeah, I've written articles about it. No.
Love stories?
Yeah, it was one of those things that I didn't think I needed until I finally bought one and realized it. But what people don't realize is that no matter how new your oven is or whatever brand your oven is, I didn't think my oven would be as far off from the temperature as it was because it's a brand new oven and it's a KitchenAid, which isn't a cheap brand. But when I put my oven thermometer in, when it said it was 350, it was actually 260, which is a huge difference.
Your oven betrayed you.
Yeah, it like fully betrayed me, which can affect like cooking times. It can affect the texture, especially if you're baking.
Yes.
Like if you're cooking something at a lower temperature than what it's supposed to be at, cookies, for example, can be a completely different texture when they're out. They can be cakier and not that like nice gooey and like chewy cookie. So oven thermometer is super important. So if you want like consistent baking, and like I feel like a lot of people think they might be cursed at baking and cooking, but maybe it's just your oven.
We'll see.
Maybe it's just your oven. Take it away, Devin.
A wood cutting board. This seems so basic, but honestly, you're gonna be chopping up lots of vegetables.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff. No, why do you recommend wood over plastic?
There's probably more technical answer than this. I prefer wood, first of all, looks-wise. It's also, I think to me, wood lasts longer than plastic. I've had plastic cutting boards before. I don't really like them.
Okay.
I think they tend to wear a lot easier. You see the cut marks a lot.
Yeah.
Especially if you're getting a pretty thick wood cutting board, that can last you a long time. Make sure it's hardwood so that it's like a good quality wood cutting board. I personally just like the look better. I think they last longer, and I think they're more durable.
Yeah?
That's my personal preference, and I don't have expensive cutting boards, but I've had mine a long time, so.
I don't know. I like the look of them better for sure. They do stain.
Yeah,
That's
they do stain.
One thing to keep in mind, like if you're cooking with something that stains, or chopping up something that stains really quickly.
Strawberries,
rinse
raspberries.
It off, right away, because it kind of will stick around for a bit. But I like it better, and what you said about the plastic ones getting the grooves, that happens
and things
pretty
can
bad.
get stuck in those grooves, and it just it's a very rough surface. And usually if you get a good cutting board, you can use a wood one especially, you can usually take care of it and fix it up by adding some oils to it and stuff like that. So it's easier to maintain the wood cutting board and have those for a longer period of time. Woks. Woks.
Well, I mean, who doesn't love stir fry?
Exactly. And I think people underestimate the wok.
Really?
Like, not necessarily underestimate, but they don't think it's a necessity.
Okay.
I think it is if you want to do like good Asian cooking because it helps, like it has such a big surface so you can get really hot, which is what you need for a lot of Asian cooking. You want a really, really hot pan, and the wok has that everywhere. You can do lots of flipping, which is great. Woks are great for that.
Dramatic.
And when you're cooking like a stir fry, you're supposed to put something into a really, really hot pan, and woks heat up really, really well. I think it's important. Woks can be a little pricier because they're more of a specialty item, but if you go to, again, warehouse sales or any kind of sales, like Canadian Tire here has sales all the time that are great. I got my wok for like 25 bucks. Awesome, and it's a great wok, so.
What we use in almost every recipe is a citrus juicer.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking. You can just squeeze lemons and limes.
But you know what? It's not that easy, because then you have to worry about like the seeds getting through, and then maybe you don't get as much juice out of it.
You definitely don't get as much juice out of it.
And if you're going to be juicing lemons and limes that often, a citrus juicer is like $10.
Yeah.
Max.
Yeah.
That's a fancy one.
You might even be able to go to the dollar store and get a decent juicer there.
Yeah.
No, it's something that I didn't think of. Devin actually mentioned it, but we do use it pretty much every single recipe we do, as long as it's like savory or something like that. Even not savory, we use it all the time.
Yeah.
And finally, last but definitely not least, spices.
Yes.
It is so, so, so important to have a good array of spices, especially in vegan cooking.
Yes.
Spices are so, so important, and we use them
so
much because they can add so much flavor to something. I can't even count how many spices I have. Like, I probably have more than the normal person would have.
But I would say that's better because you have such a good selection that you can pretty much make whatever flavor you want.
Yeah.
So,
how many do you think I have? Rough count.
I don't know, like 5. I'm like 5 across. I'm like 8, 40.
I've probably somewhere close to 50 because I have some that aren't in jars too. Somewhere close to 50 different spices, maybe a little less. I don't know. But probably between 40 and 50. Yeah. They're not expensive to invest in. All my jars are from the dollar store.
Yep.
And you just buy in bulk.
I think the only thing to consider with your spices is how many you can organize in your kitchen and keep nicely in your kitchen.
And how long they're going to last. Spices do lose their potency after a while. So start with smaller quantities. Figure out what you use more, what you use more often. And that's how you should buy them. Don't just buy a lot of everything right away, because if you have it for a long time, adding it's going to do nothing because it's going to have no flavor anymore.
It's just going to be a random powder.
Yeah, but when you looking for good spices, dried herbs are great. As much as we promote fresh herbs, you can't always be growing fresh herbs sometimes. Depends where you live, depends how much sun you get, how big your space is. If you can't have fresh herbs all the time, dried herbs are amazing second option. But other than that, some of my go-tos, cinnamon, nutmeg, always have cinnamon, nutmeg. I almost add them to like every kind of baking recipe.
I was going to say garlic and onion.
Garlic and onion, so important. Smoked paprika.
Oh, yeah.
Is so good. I have both paprika and smoked paprika. I end up using smoked paprika a lot more because I like the smoky flavor out of it. Super, super good. Cumin, great for like Mexican type flavors. Hot chili powder to add some spice to it. Cayenne, which is a lot stronger spice than hot chili, but it packs a punch for even just like a pinch of cayenne in something.
What about like Old Bay or allspice?
Old Bay is great, especially if you're vegan and trying to get that seafoody flavor.
Okay.
It's used in a lot of seafood dishes, so Old Bay is great for that. It's on our calamari, which is really, really good. Old Bay's great. Allspice, again, underrated. I think people were surprised when we used it a couple times on certain recipes.
Yeah.
I love allspice. Allspice is so good. It's used in a lot of Asian cooking and I hear Jamaican cooking.
Oh.
Yeah. But I think those are the ones, like turmeric I use a lot. I do like turmeric a lot. But make sure when you're using turmeric to also add black pepper to whatever you're adding turmeric in, because then you'll get all the awesome nutrient properties from the turmeric.
They work best together.
Yes.
Just like us.
Yes.
Why did you laugh?
Nothing.
Okay. I think that was a good list.
Was that a good list?
Yeah.
Did we miss anything important that you think
Let us know.
people should be using? I mean, I think this list could go on for so long. We were really trying to narrow it down to our top 10 that weren't like obvious. Like, obviously you need measuring cups and spoons and forks, all that stuff. But let us know if you think we missed anything or if anything should be added to the list. If you're curious about buying any of the items that we have, we'll link everything down below for you. If you have any questions, if we didn't answer certain questions about certain things, let us know down below. We'll answer those. But yeah.
I think that covers it.
I think so.
Hope you enjoyed this type of video where we kind of just share what
It's
we've learned.
Kind of like cooking or vegan 101 type stuff. Do you like these types of videos? Should we make more of them?
We try to give you information that is useful instead of just food that's useful.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for new vegan recipes every Sunday, whatever Wednesdays, every other Wednesday. In the description below, you'll find everything we talked about. You'll also find a link to our newsletter and our podcast. Be sure to check those out. We might do a follow-up podcast episode.
Yeah,
on
so we
this.
can kind of like actually not just a 10-minute long video, something like 45-minute long where we actually talk about like our experience with everything and like why we don't like things over other things and stuff like that. If you guys want to hear that, that could be cool. Let us know too. Even like if you have other ideas for the podcast that are like cooking 101 or vegan 101 ideas, put them down below as well.
All right. That's all for today.
Yeah.
We'll see you on Sunday.
Bye.
Bye. Something that we honestly use in probably almost every recipe.
Oh no.
Are you
Hold
okay?
on. My mic came out.
How do we do this?
What do we do?
What's a YouTube?
I was about to say that.
Okay. So,
This is the earth.
round.
That we say all the time too. It's
All
ridiculous.
the time.
Okay.